Welcome to the Speaking of Writers podcast. I'm Steve Richards. Today's guest is a New York Times bestselling author whose thrillers are known for their realism, intensity, and ripped from the headline storytelling. Before becoming one of the top names in political suspense, he spent 21 years serving in the U.S. Army Infantry and Special Forces, including Delta Force. His latest Pike Logan thriller, Shadow Strike, takes readers into a chillingly plausible world of proxy warfare, global terrorism, espionage, and political chaos. From Argentina's triple frontier to Washington, D.C., the stakes couldn't be higher as Pike Logan faces off once again against a legendary assassin known as the Ghost. It's my pleasure to welcome Brad Taylor back to the Speaking of Writers podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here. Shadow Strike feels incredibly timely. Pike Logan has faced dangerous enemies before, but this guy, the Ghost, is a uniquely personal and formidable adversary. What makes this character such a compelling villain, Brad?
Yeah, I think most of it is I wanted to show when I first created him, I had no intention of bringing him back, but he was so perfect for this book, I did. But when I first created him, I kind of wanted to show that the villain is a hero in his own story. Everybody's got their own motivations. Even in the real world, real terrorists have their motivations. They didn't wake up and think they're Hannibal Lecter and they're going to go around killing people because that's what they love to do. They think they're doing it for a greater good. And I wanted to show that side. While you may not agree with it, you see it. You understand why the Ghost is doing what he's doing. And I did that in the first book. It's actually my third book, Enemy of Mine. And he got captured then and locked away. And I was creating a character out of whole cloth for this book. And I thought, the Ghost has worked with Hezbollah before, and he's exactly the kind of guy that would do this kind of thing. So I decided to bring him back.
This is your now 20th Pike Logan thriller. And one thing readers consistently praise is the realism in your novels. How much real-world research goes into creating the operational details in a Pike Logan thriller?
A ton. One of the hardest things to do is keep up with technology because that is just racing forward and racing forward. You really got to stay on top of that. But for the tactics and techniques, it's obviously from my background. But for this specific book, it was the actual idea of the book came out of the October 7th attack against Israel. We were looking at, obviously we cared about Israel, but we were looking at, okay, because this happened, what'll affect U.S. interest? And Hamas is kind of a one-trick pony. They can attack from the Gaza Strip into Israel, but they can't project force. They can't project power into the United States. But Hezbollah can. Hezbollah is a 800-pound gorilla. And so I started studying them, and it turns out that the greatest preponderance of Hezbollah outside of Lebanon is in the tri-border region of South America. There's just a ton of them down there. And I thought, that's kind of weird. And it turns out that the greatest terrorist attack Israel had ever had prior to October 7th was actually in Buenos Aires. They blew up a Jewish center down there and killed 85 people. And that was done by Hezbollah coming out of the tri-border region. So I went down there and, stomped around all over Argentina after I did all the book research to get the settings right, the culture right, and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of research into it.
And then, Brad, there's Iran. And this novel explores Iran's proxy warfare strategies. You mentioned Hezbollah, the logistics, cyber deception, radiological threats. How much of what readers see in the book is grounded in real-world capability here?
Absolutely grounded in real-world capability. The whole premise of the book was how could Iran strike us without literally striking us? We asymmetrically. A symmetric fight is kind of Top Gun, dogfight to dogfight. You've got planes, I've got planes. You're going head to head. Well, Iran can't do that against us. They can launch some missiles in the region, but they can't really attack us the way we can attack them. So they do asymmetric threats. And I started thinking about what kind of asymmetric threats could they do, and I developed a plot from that.
Pike Logan continues evolving as a character after so many books. How do you keep him fresh while staying true to who readers know and love?
Yeah, that's actually one of the hardest things about writing a series is you've got to, Pike's got to grow. All human beings grow no matter what they do. If you go to, when you go to college, you change. When you have a child, you change. When you get married, you change. When you go to combat, you change. And so I want to make sure that Pike's evolving as a human being. When he started out in book one, his moral compass was completely broken. He was a completely different person. and he slowly but surely gained his moral compass back and found out his reason for being.
You really balance the pulse pounding action with political and moral complexity too. How important is it for you, Brad, to show the gray areas in global conflicts too?
Yeah, it's not important in the sense that I mean, I never set out to write a book and say, here I'm going to cloak this nugget of wisdom inside my fiction, so the readers will really get something out of this. But there is a sense of realism to the fact that combat in and of itself is a gray area. I mean, the minute you step on a battlefield, you've been told your whole life, 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill. Then you're given a rifle and said, go kill that guy. It starts a moral quandary right off the bat. And you make decisions in combat. Pike Logan makes decisions that in the movies, they're always right. He always does the right thing. But that's not how the real world works. You make decisions, sometimes they're wrong. You didn't do it intentionally, but people got hurt based on your decisions. You have to live with that. And so I try to show that on the page.
The idea of fentanyl being used as a terror weapon is just terrifying because it feels believable. Was that concept inspired by real concerns within intelligence or military circles?
It has been inspired by that. I'm going to give a spoiler here. Well, I don't have to give too much away. The good thing is that what I did in the book would be very, very hard to pull off the way I did it. And so I guess I shouldn't say anything more than that. It's a pretty scary thought, but in the end result, it would be pretty difficult to do.
The task force team dynamic is one of the strengths of the series. Which supporting character do you most enjoy writing right now?
I guess in this specific book, it would probably be Shoshana. She's not in every book. She's an Israeli assassin that they run, into occasionally. When I wrote about her and Aaron the first time, I created her out of whole cloth, and at the end of the book, I was going to whack them both, and I liked them too much, so I let them ride off in the sunset. And then a few books later, I was creating another character out of whole cloth. I was in Jordan, and because I guess I'm basically lazy, I was kind of like, yeah, you got those two. Why don't you pull them in? And I did. And then I got a ton of emails. Whoa, they're back. Yay, great. I thought, good thing I didn't kill them. And so I ended up pulling them in for this book.
With your military background, do you ever catch yourself pulling back details because they're just too realistic or too sensitive?
Not for realism, I wouldn't say. It's pretty hard to. I mean, I do pull back details in the sense that do you really need to know every little bit about? I mean, when a guy draws his pistol, do I need to say he drew his pistol and pulled the trigger, or do I need to say he pulled his staccato HD out of his Kydex holster with his RMR hollow sight on it, and put it up in front of his Oakley glasses and squeeze the trigger? There's a lot of detail that's completely unnecessary when you can just pull a pistol out and shoot it. As far as sensitive for classified stuff, I've been doing it for so long now that I'm kind of out of the. I'm kind of safe because what was classified, I definitely pulled stuff for classification reasons early on. But now technology's gone so much, it's gone so fast that now that if I'm using it in a book, and somebody says it's classified, I can say, well, I didn't know that. I mean, I just used it.
When you write an action scene, do you visualize them cinematically or tactically first?
First, it'd be tactically. The good thing about writing fiction, I mean, I base everything on some place I've been. I wish I could. It's easier for me to look at a building and design an assault scene around that than it is to create a building completely out of my mind. So like I was running around Argentina. I knew we were going to do hit the cabin at the end of that book actually exists. I actually found it out in the middle of the woods. And so then I designed the scene. Okay, this thing's got X number of breaches. I need this many people. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. But then I use creative license. So if if you were going to hit a building that had 3 breaches, you'd have to cover all 3 breaches to make sure somebody didn't squirt out of one of those. Well, if I don't have enough men to do that, then I just say, okay, he's got 1 breach. In this case, I actually did that in the book. There's 1 breach, but there's actually 3.
What's the biggest misconception movies and TV get wrong about covert operations?
Well, there's a ton. I mean, I could start off. First of all, the biggest misconception is what is covert operations? They throw that term around all over the place, and it's not what covert operations is. Covert operations is in Title 50 United States Code. It's law of the land. So there's a dictionary definition, but just because somebody says something's covert doesn't mean it's a covert operation. And there's certain parameters you have to do to meet the definition of covert operations. So when you see something that says, a special forces team was training Pakistani military in a covert operation, that's not covert. That's just because they went over there and didn't tell anybody doesn't make it covert. You have to affect the national command of the country you're in, the political, economic, or military conditions abroad, and you have to say that United States, you want to keep the United States knowledge of it or our actions there secret. For instance, a good example, people always say that the covert operation to kill Osama bin Laden. No, that's not a covert operation. Number one, it didn't affect the political, military, or economic conditions of Pakistan. And number two, we had no way were we going to keep that secret.
Yeah.
President Obama came out and touted it right away. It's not a covert operation. That's a pet peeve of mine because they do it all the time in the movies. But the other thing, and I'm guilty of this too, because you are writing fiction, is how easy it is to get into a country in alias or with a cover organization and do all this stuff. It's especially in the modern world, it's very, very hard to do. I mean, if you go over, I'm Brad Taylor and I go to country X is Brad Smith. As soon as I enter that country and give my fingerprint, well, anytime I enter that country again, I'm Brad Smith. That's it. I can't go over it again as Brad Taylor because they'll say, "Well, we got you in the system, somebody else." It's a lot harder to do than Hollywood or even myself write about.
Are there real world headlines that immediately make the thriller writer part of your brain start spinning with possibilities?
There are a lot of the most of my books come from not. It's actually not headlines. It's I get feeds every day from all over the world and read it, and I see something that'll catch my eye and think, man, that's kind of strange. That's a book there, but it's not like a giant headline. For instance, Ghost of War. I read a story about the Nazis stole a ton of gold from trains, and they were running these trains out of Poland, and one of the trains disappeared. Nobody knows where it is to this day. It's full of gold. Well, somebody thought they'd found it. It's in Poland. It's underneath the ground next to this castle where all these Nazi tunnels are. And he said he's going to find that train. And there was a huge fight about who owns the train, who gets to see the train, all this kind of stuff. And that just sparked my creative juices. I was like, well, that's a pretty interesting story. And I started a plot from that.
You have traveled extensively for research. What is the most memorable location you visited for a book?
I'd say the most memorable, I guess you'd say, do you mean sightseeing or what do you mean? But for me, it would be I was in Lesotho, Africa, and the book was about a coup when I was doing research on the LDF, the Lesotho Defense Forces. Their special operations were going to do the coup. And I found where the special operations were based. You can't find it on Google. There's not a whole lot of information on Lesotho. And I was running around there doing research, and I got rolled up as an American spy and pulled onto the base and interrogated for 8 hours. So that was probably the most memorable for me.
Give me one piece of gear or technology from your military days that you still think is incredibly underrated.
The whoopee. It's
What is that?
it's the whoopee is it's a blanket. It's a poncho liner that you won't find a single soldier or Marine without it. It's completely underrated. It's a one piece of kit that every one of them will have.
What is your ideal writing setup? Is it music, silence, coffee, or chaos?
It's actually in all the above. I learned, I was lucky, when you write your first book, you've got your entire life to write it. And I wrote those wherever I was. I wrote them in barracks. I wrote them at volleyball tournaments with my daughter. I wrote them at gymnastics meets with my other daughter. So I could write in any kind of chaos there is. And I've learned that if I have my computer, I don't even have a writing desk. I mean, I write wherever I am. And I carry my computer and a notebook around with me wherever I go, a journal. And when I'm ready to write, I can write wherever it is, whether it's on an airplane, in a bar, doesn't matter.
What genres do you especially enjoy reading?
I actually read crime fiction, believe it or
Mm.
not. I don't read my own genre. I read John Sanford, Robert Crace, Michael
Mm.
Connelly. That's what I read.
Love Christ and Connolly. Actually, love all
Yeah.
three. After writing so many thrillers now, this is your 20th Pike Logan thriller. What still excites you most about sitting down, getting that butt in the chair to start a new book?
It's probably the characters more than anything else. Getting back to the characters and writing the characters. The plot, I can come up with a plot, but that doesn't really. I can't think of a time where I thought, yeah, this plot's the best. It's more, like in this case, yeah, I can bring Shoshana and Aaron back, and I enjoy writing them.
Best piece of writing advice you've ever received? What was it?
Uh, The best piece of writing advice for me personally, because I didn't have any writing advice when I first started writing. I just started writing. I didn't know a writer. I didn't have any instruction on writing. I knew nothing. My instruction was reading. Every book I'd read was my instruction. Since then, I didn't know I'd have one book published, much less 20. And by book 3 or 4, I realized that, this is a series and life goes on. Pike's sooner or later going to grow out of this. I mean,
Mm.
he's not going to. I mean, the job he's in, I've done that job, and I've got an artificial knee and shoulder surgeries and everything else. You can't do it forever. You're going to get beat up. And so I was kind of in a dilemma. And like I said, I read Robert Crace, and he's got Elvis Cole. When Elvis Cole started in the '80s, he was a Vietnam vet, and now he'd be running around in a wheelchair in real life, but he's still out there kicking butt.
Yeah.
And so I cornered Robert Crace and says, what did you do about this? How did you solve this problem? And he told me that, I decided that Elvis is going to be like Superman. The world changes around him, but Superman never changes. He's always the same age. He's always the same guy, which is true from the 40s to now. He steps out there. They may change whether he's using a payphone or a cell phone, but he's still Superman. And so that's what I did. So administrations will change in the book. People will come and go out of the task force. Things will happen. But I've never mentioned Pike's age ever again. I did in the very first book, and I've never done it again. And I never refer to any of that.
You mentioned, I remember Robert saying that on this very podcast when the last time we chatted. What do you hope readers take away from Shadow Strike after turning that final page?
The most thing I to be honest with you, the hope I get is they look at the clock and go, "Oh my God, it's 4 a.m." So that's my biggest hope, is that they when they by the time they get to the final page, they wish there were more and they can't believe that they didn't go to sleep.
And what's the best thing about being an author?
The best thing is the freedom, the ability to do. I can write whenever I want to, and I don't have a 9 to 5 job, and the research. I get to go all over the world doing the research and meeting the fans. There's nothing more gratifying than somebody saying, A, your book really helped me through a hard time. I greatly appreciate it. Or B, I love the series. Keep writing it. That's it's really gratifying.
Or I stayed up till 4 a.m. reading it. That has
Or I
to be
stayed up
too.
till 4 a.m. Yeah.
That's a home run. He is New York Times bestselling author Brad Taylor. The new Pike Logan thriller, number 20 now, is Shadow Strike, a gripping, intelligent, frighteningly realistic political thriller that takes readers deep into the world of modern terror networks, espionage, and global power struggles. You can find Brad Taylor online, bradtaylorbooks.com, and wherever books are sold. Brad, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Had a good time.
Yeah, it's great having you. And don't forget to subscribe to the Speaking of Writers podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Steve Richards. Thank you for watching and for listening. I will talk to you again next time.